also co-head the American Express Lab for Data Analytics, Risk and Technology. While I am at a management school, I don't have any management degrees. I'm an engineer through and through. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, master's in industrial engineering, and then I did my PhD in the engineering systems division at MIT. So that gave me a lot of diversity in terms of the fields that you can address. I worked in Wall Street for about 5 years before returning to India to be a faculty at Madras. So in a sense, the reason I gave you the backdrop is because I've always been fascinated about domain agnostic technologies. So if you take the role of data science or you take the role of a CIO, you can be domain agnostic. There are a set of principles, there are a set of paradigms, there is some learning about organizational structure which transcends the domain that you're in. And this has been something that's been fascinating, and this is something that I've researched quite a bit. And it is in this context that I wanted to kick off today's session. So perhaps before we start, we can just do a very brief introduction from everyone. Start with that.
Okay. So I'm Akhilur Rahman, CTO for Hitachi Energy India. So I've been CTO previously for ABB India. So I'm electrical engineer with power systems, masters in power systems. So almost 34 years back, I did my master's project as a digital simulation of a AC/DC system. It's a large electric system. So using the mathematical algorithm, converting that to a Fortran program.
We all remember that Fortran.
So I think from there onwards, I have been into technology, R&D, business development, consulting, and of course now the digitalization, using all the digital technologies in our products and solutions towards the customer. So our domain is very unique in the sense, whatever we have, automation, robotics, for example, the physical robot. So it has been there since 70s. So we had our own robots we developed. They're still there. We also have now the collaborative robot. Different type of robots for manufacturing, for production environment. So looking at the machines, the human being, the processes, the production, modeling that, the process model of that, on top of that, data analytics. So that has been all along there. I think it's very important when we talk about now automation and also AI ML on top of that. how these things together work together, bringing in more predictability in the system and processes. So that's how I'm driving it now, towards more towards the customer and markets for us, energy, industry, utilities. Yeah, so that's about it.
Good morning, Professor. Myself, Mrinal. So basically, has a post-graduation in computer science and did some MBAs also. But way back, he still could remember 34 years, but I can many years back, definitely. So primarily, I worked for DTDC, TNT, FedEx, and I was the founding member of Spot On Logistics, which is recently acquired by Delivery. But again, I'm back to DTDC after 5 years before. So I am the head of IT and the solution provider to the business. But recently, I'm moving towards the business side and taking over the business as a responsibility. So by June end, I'll be head of business and head of logistics over there. So 30 years of doing all possible things. Yes, spoken about Fortran from GW Basics to Fox Pro and all this life started and came over here. Yes, ML and AI, we have not gone there, but I must say that customer experience is key for us. So even yesterday also we had a board of data discussion that what should be our strategy for customer experience. There definitely predicament and predictions and customer analysis and customers' behavior analysis would play a very significant role for us in going forward. Already the Indian logistics player, not too many of them, but players in the e-commerce market, they are spending a lot of money to find out who we are and how we do it. I think it will be very interesting to know all of you and how you do it. Maybe then you can share thoughts. Good day.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and morning, Professor, and thanks for having me. My name is Satish. I lead technology for Urban Fashions Limited. So essentially, we are a brands and a retail business, and I think like most of the panel here, I'm also an engineer, and I did my master's in Department of Management Studies in the Institute of Science under Professor Akhilesh and Professor Vijay Chandru, almost 25 years back, right? And of course, I've been at the thick of data structures and algorithms and DBMS and all kind of courses, being in the management studies and working with the computer science guys to crack those subjects, but those things really look far-fetched right now, right? And it's almost things have come 360 degrees in terms of how close you were to technology as a student and how close you need to be now, just to see how you can exploit and explore and innovate for the business is something which we're still kind of grappling with, right? Especially coming from a firm where we were in the discretionary part of the consumer wallet, right? So typically, 5,000 rupees costing T-shirt or a trouser is not something that anybody would want to interact with in the middle of COVID. And so we've gone through, a bit of interesting times, at least very, very mildly said. And then now we're kind of trying to find that feedback and then do a lot of things which are market facing and be really in the forefront of gaining some of the market share that we potentially would have lost, primarily because of shift in the category that happened over the last 2 years. And so I can go on and on, but again, thanks for having me, and really look forward to an interesting discussion.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Professor. My name is Ayan, and I come from the insurance industry. So that's right. The middle of the financial year end as I speak, and coming from the financial industry, we all understand that we have adopted computers long back, in fact, almost at the advent of the industry itself. And I joined the industry. This is going to be the 26th year of my industry. And right from day one, I remember, I joined LIC by the time. And LIC itself was at that time leading the entire industry from an overall, I would say, computerization perspective. They are starting in the 1960s. I remember when I first joined my first branch, we had servers which were not connected, RGB RAMs, and it was completely, computing was happening away from all networks and everything. It was all localized, completely decentralized. And from that point onwards, today we are talking about claims being paid on facial recognition and voice clips being analyzed for some form of AI-backed assessment. So the industry has come a long way forward. COVID, of course, was, I would say, a dampener, but also an accelerator. So dampener initially, but an accelerator, if you ask me, from my trade. Technology sort of took some leaps which we would have, might have attained in a decade's time. We did it in a couple of years' time. So that's where we reached. So we leapfrogged a lot of things which were there in the labs out in the commercial space, and we could really make that work because that was the need of the hour. And in fact, as I speak right now, the industry is well poised to start building up on what has been done in the last 2 years. So it's not going to be business as usual for us. It's only going to be uppers and onwards. So we are gung-ho, we are looking forward. And the good thing is that the customers, because see, this is a very engaged process, something like your industry, where you have to think through. In your case, it might be a different part of the head working. In my case, it's maybe the left part of the head. In your case, it's the right part of the head. So it's a very engaged process. The customer has to get into it. It's a financial commitment for the next 20 years. You have to know what you're getting into. And I was so happy to see that in the last 2 years, people have really embraced technology like never before. Of course, thanks to the overall ecosystem that was also available. But earlier we had this challenge. We were only talking to millennials and thinking that these are the guys who will understand any app which is put on the phone and they will be able to interact. Now, I'm seeing people in their, we also sell pension products, right? People who are actually getting into that mode or that part of their life stage, they are equally comfortable and confident, making a purchase through a mobile app. Now that was an eye-opener for all of us. Of course, a lot of stuff happened, and we also continue to try to understand, what goes in well and what comes out better. But still, these were the things which sort of gave us a lot of confidence, and we moved ahead.
At the very least, it's at least become something that people are open to trying and exploring. It's not a stigma. It's not it's in fact seen positively.
So it was something which we realized that initially we had our worries that what would happen next.
Yeah.
See, we understand that all through our life we have seen insurance being sold. All of us would have purchased insurance some point of time, right? The agent comes to our place. He will share a cup of tea or coffee. He will explain the product. It's a complex product. Let's be very clear about it. Half of us don't even understand. There are 7 pages of forms to be filled up. It's an engaged process ultimately. Everything moved to the mobile phone. Everything was simplified as well. And the entire ecosystem came forward. Your UIDIs to your e-payment systems to your links, and everything is available today. But yes, this was a good journey for us and a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's really interesting having such a variety of industries and
It's just
Absolutely.
I am the CIO of Fincare Small Finance Bank. Basically, we are a microfinance turned a bank. Like 4.5 years back, we got a banking license for 1 year. Still we are like the microfinance, which is the bottom of the pyramid. Women customers in the small villages work as a group and lend them by the road. So that's still 75-80% of our business. But we're now diversifying into many other lending as well as the deposit products. I handle both IT and digital here at Fincare. Prior to this, I was with the Nehru Caps. I joined there in 2007 as the founding CTO, and the last 3 years I was working as the CEO there before we sold it off to Mahindras. And prior to Miro, I was with Star TV. Again, worked there for 10 years. As I led the tech function there. Again, some of you spoke about very early days where there were no networks, etc. So we started from that age. So 3 or 4 different industries that I worked with. Before that, I spent some time in the tech industry. So yeah, thank you.
I did the mic drop on your behalf. Finished. Instead of you doing it, that's it.
Thank you. Very good morning, and thanks all of you for taking time to join this. My name is Chandramouli Swaran. I lead products and infra managed services for GAPS Technologies. In GAPS, we also build products that actually helps in delivering our services better. The Zero Instant Framework, which is an Aiops platform, is built by GAPS from the scratch. I've been with GAPS for 6 years. Before that, I was in Genpact, Polaris Software Lab, and HCL Company Systems.
So, welcome everyone again. I was just listening to all of you, and one of the things that stood out the most is that you've all worn different hats at different times. Hardly are you married to just the domain that you are in currently. You've actually not only worked in different organizations, but worked in different domains on the tech, on the CIO front. So I think the first question that I wanted to start with, and this is something which people talk about anyway, even if you don't start with this question as you have, which is, where are you implementing AI within your organization? Right? And I would say, let's broaden that. Let's not even say your organization right now, but where are you seeing AI being implemented? Because you have seen multiple different domains. And I wanted to put a little bit of context to this question. See, because on the academic front, we see this expansion of AI, which I'm sure we're seeing in industry as well. On a particular scale, right? On one side, we have the movement in artificial general intelligence. This is the idea that, the strong AI idea that we can replace humans, we can smash certain problems which are unsolvable. We're seeing this in domains such as vision, speech, and so on, where we're getting to that higher level and solving fundamental problems. When you work in an organization, just like we heard Ayan speaking about how sometimes things force us to make that leap, right? There is definitely an organizational culture in some places to do that, to work on problems in AI ML, which will change the game, which will take you to that next leap. The other end of the spectrum is closer to the automation end of the spectrum, which is make small iterative adjustments so that you can save on costs, right? And I don't think it's worthy of glorifying one versus not, right? But the thing is, where do you see organizations on this spectrum? Are they taking a core problem which, if they solve, is a game changer over their competition? Or are you seeing something that you would rather pitch as a cost-cutting measure? Deployable AI. Right? How do I make AI? The technology exists on the AI front. There's a code base from the best paper, but I want to take that and try and let
I come from. They have at least a few handful of thousands of stores, right? So, and you're probably talking about 10,000-15,000 associates at the very, very minimum who are going to use technology, and to actually imbibe something of that scale, right? To make a difference consistently and predictably without any risk to the business, obviously requires it to be very tangible and it to be very focused, right? And it has to be very succinct in terms of the value it delivers, right? Either to that person's life or as an employee or to the customer. So I think from that perspective, I would say it's more like a 15, 20, 35, 65 kind of a split, right, broadly. Having said that, there are so I take it in two buckets, like the way you put it.
But Satish, before you go, like I just want to make sure that I'm having the right example in my head, right? So when you're looking at an AI implementation in your domain, are you thinking more in terms of the operations, meaning supply chain optimization, demand forecasting in that area, or are you thinking more in terms of sales forecasting, marketing in that side, or closer to the IT ops itself?
I would say it's probably all of that, but again there is something which is even more important and differentiating for a typical retail business, which is essentially even if you take groceries or if you take garments, right? Because we're all seasonal businesses, so we have to make sure that our markdowns and discounting is actually does not impact the profitability of a product, right? Which means it's our ability to sense the sell-throughs that happen off the shelf and have the ability to take the returns back from stores where it is selling through better and moving it perhaps to stores where it's moving it from a C store to an A store, right? So these are all the decision points which are very, very data driven, right? Today, if you look at it historically, the retail or the brands business, I would say at least still a good part of even now, it depends on which organization we're talking about. It runs on gut feel, it runs on organization politics, it runs on targets, it runs on a lot of, but these are very important, right? We cannot wash these away. But that's why I would say that, probably AI at best or technology at best kind of amplifies the intelligence of the person, right? So, or rather call it amplified intelligence rather than artificial intelligence or something like that. Right? So that, or an augmented intelligence, whatever you call it. So that there is a basis, to make certain decisions and to take. So I think that's one end of the spectrum, more from demand forecasting, from a returns management, from that perspective, right? So the other perspective is just getting taking the cost out of the system. Right? So today, if you look at where we have implemented some of the bot-based solutions in my organization is. Something which are highly repetitive in nature. It's not going to. It's going to empower the person who's doing the task in some part of his value chain, right? So that he has a kind of an influence view of what happens end to end. So it's more like a supervised bot, so to say, and so that if there is an intervention that is needed, it can be done at the right time. And essentially, I think the biggest advantage of these type of tools is there is no holidays. It's 24/7. A bot can be operated, scheduled on a Saturday, Sunday, right? So you don't have any of those So if there is an exception, you just need to supervise and monitor those exceptions. I think this is where the cost-cutting angle really, kind of pitches itself.
And this would typically be on like an ERP system or a...
I think the underlying the technology as far as operations of bots, we have really made it agnostic to what is above the layer. It's really below the kind of application stack. Because ultimately we are dealing with probably a bunch of APIs and certain set of integration points. And once you hook on to that, then it's really to churn the task at the fastest pace you can and 24/7. Right? Again, that's the other end of the spectrum. So I think the way we look at AI is because today, in given the context we are with a lot of business kind of springing back to its legs and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to articulate a technology idea as a technology idea. I should be able to say that I want to get your interstock movements of a particular set of trousers from store A to store B in probably 10% of the time, and I'm going to ensure that your sell-through is going to be at least 40% better. Right? That's the business case which works better.
Yeah. So definitely, you're saying a little bit of both, but absolutely a business pull seems to be the driver.
Yeah, if I just take a cue from there, I got two quick aspects I'll just touch upon. So we have large warehouses. People's behavior management was a big issue for us. Okay, we all have CCTVs. Okay. How we use it. Once a thief is left, then only you go back and find out how it came and all this stuff. So in recently last 1.5 years, at our 4 warehouses, we have implemented one video analytics tool. So it is now started controlling the people's behavior. if somebody is sitting on the parcels, throwing parcels, dragging parcels, all getting earmarked and getting alerted. It's not real-time alert,
Yeah.
but when the shift goes, next shift comes,
Yeah.
we do a lot of analysis and video itself tells.
So it is able to detect tossing, is it?
It is able to visit that also.
Wow.
There are four things we have implemented so far
Yeah.
at our 4 warehouses. One is that the bay management, when vehicle came in, when vehicle moved out,
Yeah.
and how many people are there.
Yeah.
Even we're in a position to find out your security guard who is supposed to wear a different jacket,
Yeah.
he is there or not.
Yeah. No, I'm very impressed because
So
again,
this is-
object recognition is something we can do. Jackets and but behavior recognition has
Yes.
always been.
I'm coming to the second point. Now this dragging, there are only 4 points I have covered so far. Dragging, throwing, sitting and stacking.
Yeah.
These 4 points we could cover now. And which is giving at least 65 to 70% great accuracy. And who is stacking unnecessary, who is dragging.
Yeah.
Okay, we are just implementing who is running even.
So I can at least have 2 more cobots. So they are not bots at all. They are not cobots to work for 2 more shifts.
Yeah.
So while we are a completely white collar industry, but then we need these guys implemented. So you see, you keep on getting calls from your insurance companies for the renewal premium reminders and all that, right? You understand these are pesky calls and they really bother you at times.
The reminder calls are very important.
They are, but then if, for example, you have been a customer and you have been paying regularly your renewal premiums just one day or on the day of your renewal. My call center guys will start calling you 30 days before.
Yes.
That is their KRA. Now all of this has been moved to the bots. Now bots, the moment you pick up the phone, you know that there is a machine speaking. At times, some customers are put off by that. Still, the Indian side is not used to hearing a machine voice actually, even though that message might be important.
No, and that sweet spot of how much in advance. Working with a bunch of organizations is 180 days the perfect, 90 days the perfect, 45 days the perfect. For any renewal, what is that sweet spot time?
Right.
Is a hard problem to.
So this is exactly what we are trying to achieve here.
Yeah.
Just to find out from the response of the customer. Is he being positive if I call him exactly 30 days before? Is he being positive if I call him just 45 days before, or he exudes some negative feelings on the call itself? Today, a 30-second voice clip tells me so many things about the customer that even a long chat with my call center, contact center guy would not actually achieve.
Yeah.
We have almost reached there where there is a humanoid voice today interacting with the customer. So, for example, if the call comes to me and I am in Bangalore, my address shows that it is the person is in Bangalore, and I just whip back that sorry, I am in Pune right now. I'm driving. I'll call back later, or I'll see you. The moment he hears Pune or something, or for example, I suggested driving. Immediately, the boss will look up the weather of that city and says, "Sir, the rain is expected in Pune, so please drive safe. We will have this conversation." So we are trying to switch on that empathy in the conversation, which was earlier missing. It was very, very much transactional in nature, and that would switch you off. The moment you hear that the company is actually, taking care of you, there is a different shift in his thought process, and we have been really getting good feedback from this. So these are 3-4 areas where
you think it's.
we are very much implemented, and
Definitely one thing that is emerging as a common thread is the fact that it's not just AI for automation; it's also AI with the human side.
yes,
Right? Whether it be for call center, customer satisfaction, whether it be for sales and marketing, what is new and what is this thing. I can't think of another industry more relevant to the human side than the microfinance one, right? Ranging from willful defaulting all the way to borrowing from a money lender at a higher rate so that you don't go delinquent. This industry pioneered the notion of social pressure, so that people pay back through JLGs and things like that. Are you using any AI ML in your domain? outside the operations side, or is it primarily the operations side? And if you are using it outside the operations side, are you bringing in models of human behavior into AI?
Very interesting. And it's like you just beyond operations, because operations in terms of credit underwriting, that's not a very big piece for individuals. Credit history may not be so long enough. But the good part is that lots of ecosystem is building up in terms of providing the credit bureau score. Because all the microfinance literally have to submit the data every month. Actually now on a every day basis about the repayment behavior of customers. But when we did some research on the like at a higher scale, like 10,000 feet, we realized few very interesting outcomes. I'll give you one example. Places like which are closer to the water bodies, the rivers, like when we put the geointelligence into this whole thing, we realize the places which are closer to that have a far better track records over 20 years of history of microfinance in terms of repayment. So our ability to identify the newer villages, India has like 6 lakhs plus villages. So identify which are the villages to go to, which states to go to, etc. Can also be driven at a very large decision making process.
No, and what you're observing is synonymous with the academic blast, say, in this topic also. I think it's Ending Poverty, Jeffrey Sachs or whoever, who said that ultimately the landlockedness of bodies is what contributes to chronic poverty. He was using that as a counter argument to kind of say that we should be helping people out in certain regions. But that's amazing to see that we are also observing something like that through your.
I saw that personally when I visit something like this, banking sites and all that. Realize the prosperity levels are so different as
Very interesting.
We're all back to our caveman days in some way or the
human civilization, grew up next to water bodies, and the entire. We can see the North Indian civilization structures initially came up next to the Ganges. Interesting. So, more it changes, more it remains the same. Interesting.
So, Chanda, where do you see, because you are a slightly different participant than everybody else, right? Somewhere you wear the CIO hat in the IT space. Right. So in the IT ops thing, is the implementation of AI ML do you just say IT is just another industry and we have our own idiosyncrasies? Right. Or is it just fundamentally different to say AI ML in our space?
Yes, IT by nature it's horizontal. If I have to use the terminology, vertical. All the gentlemen here talked about how AI is penetrating into the domains or vertical. One thing struck me when Bernard talked about voice analytics and video analytics, and Jan talked about the mobile application using which he signs an insurance that lasts for 20 years. All these applications, if they don't run properly or if they are not available 100%, then the very purpose of the AI will get lost. The voice analytics, for some reason, if the network is down and then it is not working for over 1 hour, what happened in the 1 hour is getting missed out. So for all the AI applications that is run for the business, there is some other AI program that needs to run to make sure that all these applications are run all the time.
Right.
That is where I think this Aiops plays a role, and that is where I am coming from. All industries have business critical applications which are having AI, which are not having AI. The e-commerce applications are very, very business critical applications. So how do we make sure that they run near 100%, if not exactly 100%? And that is where the proactiveness comes, proactiveness and predictiveness. As long as I'm reactive, I don't know when it will fail. And then when it fails, I don't know how much time I will take to resolve it. That means the very purpose of business critical is lost. That means I need to be able to predict when it's going to fail, or what's the health of the system now, what's the health of the system next week. That predictive intelligence as part of the IT operations is very much important for the AI in business to succeed. That is what this Aiops platform that we have built, which has the intelligence to first find the environment, like the IT environment in your organization, ION, may be different from what is running in DTPC. Each of them has their own. So what is each environment does, and then it finds out how to identify the anomalies in that. Once you find the anomalies, how to correct back so that the system runs normally. That is what the zero incident framework or any Aiops platform is supposed to do. In the process, we have built various modules into that is essential enough to make an Aiops platform work independently without expecting or requiring any data from other tools and systems. That's a brief, Professor.
Interesting. So, in a sense, Akhilur, I would say you also share some similarities to Chandra's role, right? In that I would differentiate you as not directly liaising with the retail customer, right? Your industry is one where you add values and services. And I've always thought, as a data scientist, that one of the differences of AI is in your domains as opposed to being at the retail domain is you have the unique opportunity to be prescriptive, right? Whereas these guys somewhere are still stopping with the predictive side. Whereas full-on automation, and I know Gabs does actually some of that. They have all these things that I know because I've actually collaborated with them on occasions and built things that automatically take a decision based on the predictive insight. You don't need the human in the way. I see a lot of opportunity there, but is the AI advanced enough that you can have a prescriptive module where the problem you're solving is a control problem, not a learning problem, as we say in reinforcement learning? Yeah.
So very rightly placed, Professor. I think this is something like a closed loop control system.
Yes. Yes. The chemical engineers will say it that way.
Yeah.
But are you a chemist by any chance?
No, I mean,
Okay.
we use the same philosophy. I mean, somebody said, technology agnostic or what.
Yeah.
I think you talked about.
Yeah.
So whether the closed loop control system is chemical engineering or electrical engineering, power systems or anything, it's the same. The philosophy is the same. Yeah. You have the sensors, it collects the data, you run some algorithm, and based on the algorithm, results, it gives commands to the actuator and something happens. It has to happen automatically, no human intervention.
Yeah.
Only in exception you have that.
Yeah.
So I will bring the examples from the customer end user point of view. I mean, our operational things are, it's more transactional. But when we talk about continuous process, so one is transactional process where you have maybe every minute, hour, or day, or whatever is okay. Yeah. But when I say continuous process, where even a millisecond counts, millisecond in the sense 1,000th of a second. If something happens in 1 millisecond, the second millisecond or third millisecond, that can actually create a lot of issues in the production, manufacturing, or the energy system, or the power flow, or whatever. It can lead to some failure, which can be a hazard for the human being, for the process. You have seen a lot of chemical plants or even the utility grids, they are getting into the blackout mode. It starts with one or two sensors maybe not collecting the data rightly, or wrong data collected, and that algorithm is processed based on that wrong data, and then it trips one, let's say circuit, one node, and then it goes into cascaded failure. So it's like in energy, what happens? I mean, you don't realize the electricity we are getting here. Maybe somewhere it is not directly connected, but somewhere it is connected to a plant in northeast where it is producing hydroelectric. So electric grid is the most complex, highly connected network where it works in real time, continuous process. So here, so we have automation in place. We automate all these sensors, actuators, controllers. They're all connected with the system, with the computers, with the SCADA, with the load dispatch center. And there are a lot of predefined algorithms they're running. They're all mathematical algorithms based on the process model. But what happens when we want to bring in more predictability? I give example of, let's say, renewable energy. So now we are all, in general, going in for the utilities, country, industry, going for renewable energy. the wind, the solar, and all that of energy. Moving away from the conventional thermal gas-based energy, it was carbon neutrality, coal-based. Yeah. So this renewable energy is not predictable. In the sense, you can predict to some extent, but it is not in the range of that millisecond. When this renewable energy, let's say, is produced in Leh, Ladakh, or maybe Rajasthan, and then it is connected to the grid, and then on the grid side, we all know that how we are, using the electricity.
Yeah.
And suddenly we switch off, switch on, and then we have a lot of electric vehicles coming in the industry and also the society, and also the lot of production. Suddenly you have a lot of loads coming, impulsive load in millisecond. So that has to react. So this actually brings in with all these automation in place, predefined algorithms. So we use the AI ML to predict the renewable energy generation so that the grid is stable. Because if there is an imbalance of power, it can lead to failure of a particular line, node, and cascaded failure, which you have seen many a times. The entire city goes for a blackout, or state, or region, or national grid goes to blackout. So that kind of thing we do. The second example is autonomous protection. We talked about the closed loop control system. So there actually again a lot of algorithms are developed, predefined algorithms with mathematical. Also the intelligent algorithms, they're there. So they actually sense all the data coming from different sensors, thousands of different sensors, physical sensors. And the behavior of the process, whether it's an industrial process or energy or electricity, is captured from there. But there are a lot of unpredictability in terms of like renewable energy, or something happens, some machine or some asset is failing, is not working properly.
Yeah.
So there, this protection system has to work in millisecond. Isolate it's like cancer. Isolate the particular asset or system or connection immediately so that it doesn't lead to cascaded failure. So there we are moving to autonomous protection, where in addition to the predefined algorithm, intelligent algorithm, we can also predict the condition in the system. And it's again not very directly used as a closed loop control, because if there is false positive, it can lead to the reliability, how to detect the health of those assets. Many of the assets, they are 20 years, 30 years, 40 years old. They are still working fine.
Detection for the purpose of predictive maintenance or backup or?
Yeah, so one is the predictive maintenance, that you predict that okay, there is something going to happen to this asset, let's say in a day or two.
Yeah.
So then you take a planned maintenance shutdown, and then so there the prescriptive element comes.
Yeah.
It also suggests you that okay,
You have to do something.
you can wait for 2 days, and then you switch over from this particular feeder line to another feeder and take this asset out. And in this asset, maybe your insulation component has problem.
Yeah.
So the downtime is very important there. Because I can't take, let's say, transformer.
Yeah.
Big transformer, power transformer, which can feed to a city, for example, 200, 300 megawatts of power, one transformer. If it fails, then your city is out without power. Yeah. So there we have also robots. I was talking about robots. So we have the diver robot, which actually with this prediction model, you can also use this diver robot to do the inspection in the transformer. So you just insert the robot. Otherwise, it takes 3 weeks for the inspection of the transformer.
Yeah.
The transformer, you have to take out the insulation, the material, the oil from there. Then you have to send some human being in a big tank. The human being, normally it used to happen. So he will go inside and do the inspection. 3 weeks of time. Safety hazard to the person who is going inside. You have say electrical machine, and then you have insulation, you have charge, so chemical, electrical hazards. So we developed this robot which will just, you don't have to take out the oil or insulation, so you will just get inside. It will dive inside the machine, and you have a person outside, the expert outside, who is remotely looking at it, controlling it, It is providing the information, and also this robot is providing you some insights into the predictability. That okay, this component of the machine is not good, is going to fail or has failed. Similarly, it is also connecting to the experts in the other region in the globe. Same. It has happened. We have done for some of the industries.
So what's so interesting about this is unless the robot goes there, you don't get the information.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's a combination. What we do is we also have a lot of sensors inside that machine. During operation, online operation, they also provide data. But when there is a prediction of that, okay, there is a large failure, it is imminent failure which is going to happen in 2-3 days time, then you do this additional measures. It's like, a medical doctor, you do, the normal checkup and all, then they say, no, now you have to go for scanning, ECG and all. It's the same thing. So all these, I think here, the machine intelligence, the human intelligence, the software intelligence, they all work together, so we call it augmented intelligence.
Right.
And the bottom line here is our utilities, everybody looks at that it should not disrupt the process what has been there today. Because that the predictability should not be in a negative way, false positive. Let's say if it gives, and then your machine is out, then you are deprived of the service.
Absolutely.
So that's the reliability kind of thing we bring.
The link that I can see definitely with an IT ops organization is huge, right? Because again, it's down to downtime, and it's down to unless there are things that you can do in a prescriptive manner, not just in a predictive manner, you can automate and do things. As well as the fact that unless you ask certain questions or do certain things, you're not getting information out of the system. You've got to learn that content.
There are two things there. One is accuracy of the prediction that we make. We have been facing. The second one is out of
iterate. So again, I am openly establishing my bias, but I would love to hear from you as to which end of the spectrum or middle of the spectrum you are.
Yeah, good.
So we are actually by purpose, because the demands of the industry and the customer and where we operate in basically the market, that segment of the market, we are in the middle actually. So we, as I just mentioned, that this technology has just come to the fore in the last couple of years, 3 years, 4 years. In the commercial space, of course, this has been around in the labs for a long time. When we started looking at this technology, we realized that we already were sitting on piles of data. But as you rightly mentioned, when the questions came up that how clean this data that we are looking at is, there were so many debates around this. But then we started looking at the moment I say that this is unclean data, I'm looking at only with a very set pair of lens. That lens might be very, very much applicable as of today, and we might actually shift away from this maybe 4 years or 5 years down the line. Then again, the definition of this lens might change. For example, if all of us would remember, almost 10 years back, whenever we would give an address, we would always say that, okay, the landmark next to so and so. We always used to do that, right? And this was something which was predominantly there. And in many of when we looked at the customer data, we did a scan. We found that this particular landmark stuff was embedded within the address columns. I'm just giving a very transactional example, actually. But are we to say and take a judgment today that this was bad data, this was wrong data? Tomorrow, suddenly, this landmark might be mapped to a geospatial, map. And tomorrow it becomes very relevant to me. Now, this is a very difficult debate that has been going around, and I think what you said, I partially agree to it, that we really can't be the judge here that this data today, as we look at it, is junk basically. There were different points of time when this was collected. There were different references at that point of time through which this was collected. And which makes it, this data then gives me a reflection in the past as well. I can actually then interpolate this data and understand that, what was the science behind it when this was collected 20 years back. That gives me a lot of things to think about. So yes, to a certain extent, when we do a lot of predictive analytics in our industry, we get into the cleansing of the data lakes and we try to bring all that is available. But from our industry perspective, what we have been trying to do is that data has been sitting in silos.
Yeah.
So that is something which we are trying to crack. Always we had one core system through which the basic transactions would happen over the years. And over the last 10 years almost, peripheral applications came around and websites sprang up. And then, of course, in the last 5 years, you've got your mobile applications, which is again collecting data. How data is moving through the layers between the different applications. All of these things are again generating certain sets of data sets. Now, all of that has been lying around in different areas, different silos, different structures. There is a lot of action happening in the industry, at least to get all of this together. At least let me have it together, and then a bigger and a better view might probably come, rather than trying to attempt to cleanse something.
Yeah.
So that is something, at least that's what's happening in our industry, and I believe something I'm sharing with, because both of us are from the BFSI segment. This is actually this view is from the entire BFSI segment, rather than just insurance. This is what's happening around.
Interesting.
Maybe I can.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Please.
Go ahead, Vinay.
Okay. No, I think very interesting point what Mr. Aryan said. So we have a distinct difference between what we do and how we do between the e-commerce player and the B2B and B2C players. E-commerce inherently 82% receiver is the buyer himself.
Right.
So I ensure I give 100% pure data. And exactly Mr. Aryan said, and that's why they brought Amazons of the world, they brought in Landmark 1 and Landmark 2. So that you exactly know my delivery boy know where to deliver. But when you look into BFSI or say B2B business, when I go to say HDFC Bank, a horrible kind of data comes, receiver's data, without a phone number.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I do that? So then what we did, what we tried, so there's a lot of noise in the data. So wherever data is not there, we are trying to create data. And there are many facets of it. There is no time for telling all this. But one thing we tried, or we are trying significantly, last 2 years, we are telling during the booking time, take a photo of the address.
Yeah.
And we are significantly successful. If the photo is taken correctly, we are extracting from the data, from the photo, the address. And we are storing it. So right now we are sitting on a billions of records of data probably, where exactly we know.
Yeah.
Last 1 year, 4 times we have delivered to Mr. Aryan, but the phone number is unique.
Correct.
So now the 5th time we can predict
Yeah.
that where he lives.
Interesting.
So now we are through our smart app, which is on our delivery provider mobile phone.
Yeah.
We have now 60,000 people who are delivering our parcels. We are actually trying to tell them, don't fool us. Don't tell us the address not found and location is not such. You delivered on this location 2 weeks back.
Yeah.
So that's the way we are trying to reverse engineering, trying to create that kind of data and trying to populate.
We used to,
Bring this back.
in Beru, like when we started, whenever a trip starts, we used to look at a geolocation, a platform of that.
Yes.
So next time when the booking comes from that customer, we exactly give that platform to the buyer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This whole landmark thing is very interesting because that's how Indians think of addresses. They hate orientation and distance.
Yes.
You can't say face this way, go this way. They'll say, but I'm not next to that. I'm not saying you're next to that, I'm saying face that. They don't like that. They want proximity as an indicator, not any other this thing. Anyway, I would love for this to go on. I do want to have one last question. Like maybe a very quick rapid fire.
Sorry,
kind of-
here's
Listen, no, but I will perhaps start you off on this thing. what are you looking for in an AI ops partner? If you were to team up with an AI ops partner, what is it that you would look for?
So we develop our own AI ML because this is very much embedded. I'm talking about the technology which we provide to our customers. So it's very much embedded in our machines, in our robots, in our sensors, actuators, controllers. Because one is that you have to really manage the determinism of this. That okay, if you are predicting something, it is more accurate than what was earlier.
Yeah.
Second thing is, with that, if you are putting it in a controlled closed loop automatic action, it has to be perfect. So that's the reason. On the other hand, in the operation, when the transactional processes are there of course again the false positive is something we don't want. I mean, the business process now.
But if it's something like your IT system upkeep and things like that, would you conceivably partner with someone? And if you would, then what would you look for?
I'll just AI professor refer to Aiops means AI-driven IT operations.
Yeah, I got it. So that's why the second part, what I said there, the false positive is something
that would be a key.
avoided. The second thing is, of course, I mean, in general, I'm talking about. So second thing is, it has to be more like a platform approach, not a point solution where you automate some process
Functionality.
and then but then it is connected to another transaction, another process, and then you lose the predictability there. It has to be platform approach,
single point,
and interoperable. I mean, not that somebody would take all the AI apps from one vendor. There will be something in-house. There will be something from vendor A already running. There will be something from vendor B. Then the new vendor has to, or maybe the entire system has to ensure that all the apps are working interoperably.
So interoperability is on the one side, but the fact that you want a single platform kind of a setup, right? So it's not like a solution for a particular functionality. At the same time,
so platform can be misinterpreted.
Okay.
And, somebody can say that platform is just one from one vendor. It's a monolithic kind of platform, and then it's all tightly integrated. No, platform is more like a ecosystem where you can have plugin, hot plugin of any kind of apps there, and it has to work seamlessly. Yeah. So it's the IT system. It's the hosting system of the apps. Yeah.
Understood.
I think you started with data transcends domain, right? I think that was one of the initial statements. I kind of beg to differ with that, because a lot of what we do in especially when it comes to decision sciences, leave alone AI, has to have a lot of context to a business problem, right? Because because we can very quickly get lost into the statistics of the the numbers, and get lost in mean median modes, and start making certain inferences which are not very impinging on what the business wants to desire. I think so. I think the domain importance, or the domain pivot that a data science or an AI ops team would actually bring in will actually be very critical. Point number one. Point number two, I think to your earlier point on the bias that you have towards it being an iterative process, right? I completely subscribe to that bias, and that also kind of augments the point that if you were to operate in that iterative mode, you need to have a partner who brings in the domain capability, because that is when your time to market and your your life cycle of the entire process is going to be that much more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And I think to do that in terms of converting big data to thin data and decolumnarized data, there are a lot of technology and cloud and all that stuff that's available.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the tool is there, the tech stack is there.
Yeah.
Now it's about the people, the process, and how do you really infuse life into it, get some small use cases out quickly. I think to make this whole thing work, I would say that probably domain would be literally a 50-60% significant contributor.
So very interesting, very valid.
Yeah, if I just add directly what you asked for it. So we have around say 11,000 employees, 14,000 franchisees, 65,000 active devices we have. These are generating thousands of records and instances and logs. Definitely Aiops will play a very significant role to predict any failure, to predict any user behavior. I think definitely that this kind of technology and solution provider can help core CIO team and IT team to control those predictions. Can give them better insights that which system is going to fail and definitely going to fail. I think there Aiops can play significant role. I'm just back to core CIO activities.
If you ask me, Professor, then a partner for AI, I will actually go back to what Satish was mentioning. It is imperative that he understands the industry.
Yeah.
If he doesn't understand the industry, it will be very difficult for me. I mean, I am not engaging with a lab partner. Basically, I am expecting somebody to come and give me a commercial solution.
Correct.
So I need that person to understand my industry, my domain, and give me solutions which are clearly baked, for my requirements.
Correct.
So that is number one, clear requirement for us. Number two, which has become a big issue, in fact, of the last couple of years, is that I am engaging good technologies, I am engaging good partners, but at times, I am left high and dry because of the shortage of resources in the India geography. I might be promised resources from Scandinavia, but that doesn't really work for me because I am clearly into a different business model. So I need to have the right resources available here in India. Support is a big number two for me. Number three, if you ask me, then from a technology perspective also, I think we just touched upon it. The AI piece has to be made abstracted. It cannot only function with one particular solution. As I think Akhil was also mentioning, that it has to get into my platform. So it has to be agnostic of all my applications or my devices. I should be able to run it across my entire ecosystem. Absolutely critical number three for me. So that's
makes sense.
If I understand right, it's about managing the IT infrastructure and ensuring any IT downtowns are predicted.
Yeah, because I'm sure there are lots of systems that like wealth management systems, there'll be lots of transactional systems. So what would you look for in terms of its upkeep, in terms of the smartness it brings?
So yes, solutions are certainly required in this space. While overall, when we go to cloud and the new containerization, and there is a lot of auto healing kind of services are coming up, and I think when there are inputs related to say disk giving some input or a memory giving some input or a processor, anything saying that I'm going to fail, and that can be used to predict a future failure and overcome the problem before it happens. It might certainly be worth considering it. Just one data point that hardwares are becoming more and more reliable as time goes. The chances of failure of there is reducing, and these days the maximum number of downtimes are coming on account of human errors, on account of change management. I think change management going wrong, or account of so many partners. Like we used 100+ APIs from partners.
Yeah.
So some partners, some APIs, some AML surveys, some eKYC, some PAN verification, or some credit bureau. This check, some services failing because of which our process getting stuck.
Yeah. But I will argue that a good AIOps system should take care of all these three things. Correct.
Absolutely. I think if that's so all encompassing, then certainly it's useful.
I would just add one point which Chandra said very rightly. I mean, that we also do in our domain. Use AI to ensure that AI apps are working properly.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
AI for AI.
That's about the operation. I mean, you ensure that there is no false positive. You ensure that there is, if there is some wrong data based on which the AI is working, then it has to be detected early.
Absolutely.
So use AI for
Yeah.
No, false positive and false negative.
negative.
I'm hearing these statements, and and I don't see any contradiction, for instance, with what you were also saying in terms of you want domain specificity, because you ultimately want both, right? You want domain specificity where it's domain specific, but you want the abstraction of AI and data, the core principles. If I ask myself, how am I going to predict? There's a core principle behind it, right? And you want to keep using that principle wherever you kind of can, right? You want to use it to give out a smarter loan. You want to use it where the software that is giving out the smarter loan is not failing. So there are some core principles which go beyond the domain, and there are parts where you just have to be regulated and controlled and be fully domain specific. And so there is no, you can't give one up for the other. I know it's very interesting discussion, just being mindful of time. I know I've overshot, but Chandra, last word to you.
Yes. So, we'll take 2 minutes to talk about zero instance. The reason is, all that you said, Akilur, Ayan, and Mrinal, all are actually burnt into the system. That is because, not because that we have thought through all of them. This product has been getting built over the 5 years, and this has been running in some 25 plus implementations. We have actually learned from those experiences, not that we have gone straight with whatever they wanted. One of the things that we said that the interoperability should integrate, so that the platform now caters to that, because we know organizations have invested in some tools, they may not want to replace that. So this platform should be able to integrate with that. And it's not just a solution, it's a platform. Like today you are buying this platform for Aiops. Tomorrow you want to use that to feed your customer data and find out, or you want to put the sales data and do the forecast. This can do that. And Professor talked about whether it's a clean data or the unclean data. The platform provides the feature by which you can take any kind of data, pre-process, and put it into the structured data lake so that the AL programs run on that. And you talked about reducing human errors, right? The automation is part of this platform, and it makes sure that the automation not only does the repetitive things, it also makes sure that the jobs are done without any error. Like that, it caters to all that are required. One example, if I have to say that, in one of the financial organization, every day there are 30,000 logs and events are generated. There are about 5,000 devices, and all. It's impossible for a human to look into all of them and then take action or not take action. Also, he can't leave it because we don't know when that would hit. So there is a intelligent way of identifying the noises and false positives, and then it actually is becoming 3,000 tickets in a month. 3,000 tickets. Out of that, the automation, the platform does the triaging and automation. Only about 10% of them is actually going to the level 2, level 3. This takes care of the resource shortage that we talked about, right? This completely eliminates the need of a command center unit. There is no need of any knob. The knob runs automatically, and only 10% of the total tickets is actually going to the level 2, level 3. What it means is that your total IT operations manpower gets reduced by half or even more. So I will take time from each of you, and I will let you explain about this product.
Yeah, Chandra, it also does a grouping of sorts.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Chandra. No, I started off this whole thing by saying how professors can't have to change with the time. No, they can't be the same in the classroom. That stays true for collaborating with industry as well. IIT Madras, I'm proud to say, is actually ranked number 1 in the MHRD rankings for the last 5 years, beating out the IIT Bombay's and Delhi's by the government of India. Primarily because we have a lot of emphasis on industry collaboration. No longer is a professor only a teacher in the class. They say you need to be industry relevant, you need to be relevant for the country. And so one of the great partnerships that I've had is with Gaz. We worked on interesting problems, and that's what I kind of seek from them.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you all for taking time.
Thank you. Great learning and great